Angels Unaware. It was early one spring morning in the town of Marshfield, Massachusetts, where you see him walking down the harbor pier at 4 o'clock in the morning. The dew was still damp in the air, and there is not a soul in sight. He climbs on board his tuna trawler. Once on board, he goes down below to the engine room to check out all the levels of gauges before he heads into the control room. In the engine room, there's full headroom and a single main 900 horsepower engine with a swing engine with a separate prop shaft and a folding propeller. This boat was designed to allow a mariner, in the event of a main engine failure, to switch over to the wing engine. It takes him at least 30 minutes to get everything in order and together to prepare for the day ahead. After getting the engine started, he reaches for his thermos to pour himself a cup of java. Not long after getting halfway through his morning coffee, his crew begins to show up. Normally, the first one who arrives early is Gordon, the oldest of his crew. He was always 30 minutes early. He hauled in his duffel bag as he boarded the ship. "Morning, Captain," he said in a gruff voice. "Morning. How's the family doing?" "Oh, they're doing pretty good. Cannot complain. She holds down the fort and takes care of the family when I'm gone for a while." Captain Lewis nodded before Gordon disappeared down below to the sailors' quarters to get the first choice of bunks. He reappeared back on deck when some of the others started boarding for duty on the Whistler. There's George, Tommy, Rodney, and Lance that walked up to the captain to check in. Then they went down below to put up their gear. As they came back up on deck, they proceeded with their chores that each one had, and they also got the supplies prepared and the tank ready for the haul they planned to bring back to port. As it got closer to 5, the rest were showing up. There was Doug, Roger, Sean, Stephen, Robbie, Glenn, and Keith that completed the crew that worked up on deck. The next crew that came were the shipmates that worked down below in the engine room, galley, and kitchen. Chuck and Manny went straight down to the engine room to make sure things were in order and prepare for the long trip ahead. There were a few others that helped with the sorting and freezing the tuna down below. As soon as Dave, the cook, boarded the ship, Captain Lewis was ready to get underway. Dave went straight to work, going over his food inventory and necessities needed for this trip. "All hands on deck," he spoke through the speaker. "Aye, Captain," all of them chimed in together. The control speaker came on in the bridge. "All here and accounted for," Manny said from down below. "All right, man, let's roll the wrap." Captain Rob Lewis manned the helm of the boat and guided the Whistler slowly through the harbor towards the open seas ahead. His love of the ocean drew him there many years ago when he had gone out on a sailboat in his early 20s. It was also then when he met his wife. They had both went to the same high school together. He had come back to the ocean time and time again to be there and enjoying the wind in his face as he was in several sailboat races through the years. Then the time came when he got serious and he bought the used trawler boat and he renamed her the Whistler. He liked that name because the men always enjoyed the same passion as he did and whistled while they worked. As the Whistler moved out toward the open waters, the captain picks up speed of the 90-foot tuna trawler. The next 3 weeks would be the length of their time out on the ocean, or until they reached the limit that the boat could hold, in the authorized limit. There were also times when they can call on Captain Joe Turner, who owned the freezer boat, to come out to unload the tuna to bring into the fish market. Sam, who worked on the bridge with him, was at his station, manning the different levels on the instrument panel that was mapped out for the Whistler. "All plans are go, Captain," Sam said. "Good, Sammy. You know the route we're going. Take over for me. I will go check on the crew." "Yes, sir." He smiled, as he always enjoyed being at the helm whenever possible. Captain Lewis picks up his coffee and heads out on deck. Heading into the charted course ahead, Sammy adjusts all gauges and double-checks his fuel levels. All looked good from his point, as he could see the sun beginning to peek out from the horizon. The captain takes a moment to speak with each crew member to see how they were all doing along with their family back at home. "Morning, Sean. How's Stephanie doing?" he questioned, one of the youngest. "Good, sir. We found out it's going to be a boy." "That's in good standing. Keep the family name going. When is she due?" "First part of August," he said, smiling. It was their firstborn. "That's great. I know you're looking forward to that." "You betcha," Sean said before he returned to his chores. He made his tour around the boat as he spoke with all of them. Captain Robb also went down below to personally check with each member there also. He believed in keeping good communications open with them because they were all like family when away from home. Meanwhile, back at home, Sarah Lewis was just finishing her breakfast. She was standing there at the kitchen sink, looking out over the ocean. She says a small prayer for him and his crew. "God, please look over them and protect them," she said, gazing out the window. She always knew how long he would be out, and approximately when he would return home. Bobby, their son, was the keeper of the lighthouse that looked over the seas as it stands proudly on a cliff. Sarah had a part-time job close to home just in case her son needed her. She was a woman of good standing with the community they served, for the people of the town looked forward to hearing from her when the Whistler was in view, returning with a great haul of fresh tuna. Sarah kept in touch with all the spouses of the crew. She kept them informed of the events that occurred on their trip out on the ocean. Robert always kept touch base with her at least 2 or 3 times a week by radio, for he knew it made them comfortable knowing their families were in good hands with him as captain. "Morning, Mom," Bobby says as he strolls through the kitchen and grabs a couple of biscuits from the covered bowl on the counter. "Hey, how was your night?" she asks as he gives her a peck on her cheek. "It was all right. No unexpected events," he said, reaching for a cup to pour himself some coffee. "That's good to hear. Has Charlie gone home for some rest?" "Yeah, the nights wore him out a bit, but he's adjusting." "Okay, I'll be up there as soon as I get through here," she said before he's gone out the back door. Bobby opens the door to the lighthouse. Once inside, you can see the bottom level and a living room with a kitchenette and a bathroom. He climbs up the stairs that leads to the second level that they had added. This was arranged with 2 bedrooms for when they had to do split shifts. One could rest while the other was on guard. Then he proceeds up to the very top, which he calls the tower, and grabs his telescope as he walks out on deck. Bobby stands gazing through the scope to see if he could spot the Whistler. He looks in all directions to check things out on the choppy seas. The wind was a bit stronger there at the top, where behind him was the biggest globe of light that can be seen as far as the eye can see. Only a few years ago, he told his dad he wanted to have his own tuna trawler one day. He had already begun saving to find himself a used boat. Sarah usually worked mornings when he would be on guard. Then when she would come in from her job, he would walk he would work the afternoon shifts at one of the car dealerships in town. Charlie, his best friend, did the night shift. They had both decided they would save toward the trawler and that they would work together in the future. Meanwhile, they believed in working together as a family, as it was their bloodline. Bobby could see as far out on the ocean, the Whistler trudging along as the waves beat up against her. After an hour out on the sea, Captain Lewis came up to their first spot of the day. The captain did not have to give any orders as the men went straight to their stations and grabbed their poles and began throwing their lines out into the water. They have always used the pole and line technique, for in a way it was more of a challenge to them, and it was their way of life. After the first few pulled out the tuna, they threw the fish up and over behind them, where they knew the tuna would go flying into the middle of the boat and down into the area where the fish would be stored. At this point, the crew down below were basically stayed out of the way of flying fish or else get slapped in the face by one. This went on for the next hour before they backed away from the front side rails and returned the post to a stationary spot on the ship. Immediately, the crew down below began sorting through the tuna as they were separated by size, then put on ice in a different section of the boat. As Sammy was still in the helm, the captain strolled out on deck to do a quick survey of the quantity of tuna that were just hauled in. He looked over the edge of the section down below to scan the first pool. Roger was standing nearby him. "Looks like we got a pretty good haul at this first stop," Roger said.